This sequence shows some of March Field's B-3A keystones over the Grand Canyon in the early 1930s. During 1932, March Field was visited by Governor Rolfe of California. At a wing review in his honor, the governor saw the Keystone bombers and smaller P-6 and P-12 pursuit aircraft on the flight line, witnessed the P-6 and P-12 taking off, then returning in a sweep over the field. Then in came some Keystone bomber crews for their impressive flyby. Here is Lieutenant Colonel H.H. Arnold with the governor, watching the remainder of the first bomb wing's Keystones as they swoop in low over March's flight line, perhaps signaling the end of an era, as single-wing B-10 bombers would join the Air Corps inventory that same year. Governor Rolfe expresses his appreciation to host Lieutenant Colonel Arnold. The PB-2A and A-17 attack aircraft shown taxiing were a common sight here in the mid to late 1930s. So were the B-10 bombers depicted here taxiing out and taking off from March Field. Here come the A-17 attack aircraft again. This sequence shows A-17s in line on the March Field flight line during the latter part of the 1930s. The A-17, along with the P-26 pea shooter, was March Field's primary attack aircraft of the 1930s. The Martin B-10 bomber was heralded as the air power wonder of its day. It was the first all-metal single-wing bomber to be produced in quantity. This sequence shows B-10 bombers from March Field over Southern California in the early 1930s. March Field B-10s and B-12s were replaced in the late 30s by B-18 Bolo bombers, shown here staging a mock attack on New York City. With B-10 aircraft supporting the attack are Boeing P-26 pea shooters. These aircraft marked a transition from the liquid-cooled fabric-covered biplane to the air-cooled metal-skinned monoplane, the first pursuit to be equipped with wing flaps. Since the A-17 with the P-26 played such a key role in our history, the A-17 is shown again, this time in battle formation over Southern California. These A-17s belong to March's 17th Attack Group, commanded at one time by Captain Monk Hunter, a highly decorated World War I ace. P-36 aircraft were also part of March Field's illustrious past. Capable of flying at speeds in excess of 300 miles per hour, the P-36 had a range of 680 miles. Here, pilots from March Field peel off in the skies over Southern California during training operations in the late 1930s.
March Field, 1930-1940. In 1931, the Air Corps shifted pilot training to Randolph Field in Texas and assigned an assortment of bombardment and pursuit squadrons to March. The flight line swelled with a dazzling array of heavy bombers and sleek fighters. Wood and fabric-covered biplanes gave way to modern aluminum aircraft as concrete and steel hangars began to replace the wood structures of the First World War. On the cutting edge of aviation technology, progress at March was hit hard by the worldwide economic collapse of the Great Depression. Government-wide budget cuts, including a month-long unpaid furlough for officers and a 15% salary cut for all ranks, hampered unit training and efficiency. Further disruptions came with the founding of the Civilian Conservation Corps, a federal relief agency designed to provide jobs for unemployed young men. March Field's commander, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Hap Arnold, directed the CCC district and the 25 local area camps. By 1933, 29 of the 88 officers assigned to March were on duty at the camps. A further 22 performed full or part-time duties at the CCC headquarters at March Field itself. Aviation came to a standstill. Groups and squadrons consolidated or shut down. Over 7,000 CCC volunteers were inducted, and processed at March before the Army Reserve took over CCC responsibilities, allowing the Air Corps to return to its duties. By the latter part of the decade, March was back on track. Training resumed as the rise of aggressive fascism in Europe and Japan pulled March Field into preparation for the oncoming conflict.
Major General Hap Arnold was appointed Chief of the U.S. Army Air Corps.
Advise our nation to arm for air defense immediately. A strong Air Force is absolutely essential to keep war out of America.
From the beginning, the Commander-in-Chief found in Hap someone he could rely on. He respected Hap's judgment. Together, they saw that time to build and expand had now become precious. Hap's plans went ahead. Planes for ground support, fighter bombers, long-range bombers, fast interceptors, an Air Force that was both tactical and strategic. Remembering the First World War, Hap pressed for the quantity production of aircraft that would be necessary for a global conflict, for a war of far greater proportions than the world had ever known.
Aircraft has been seriously considered as a military weapon for barely 20 years. During that period, we have seen it progress from the clumsy, undependable contraption of yesterday to the speedy and reliable machine of today. What its future development may be, time alone will tell, but its possibilities are recognized. Landcraft is limited to land, watercraft to water. Aircraft, operating as it does in the third dimension, is limited only to the air, which for all practical purposes is boundless.